with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, mori muliwanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. And please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is GeorgeAnne Irvine. She's joining us from the San Diego Zoo to celebrate Teaching Tornero. Before we invite GeorgeAnne to join us, we want to invite you to join us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. And of course, we would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can download our free Reading With Your Kids magazine, check out our Drawing With Your Kids page, and coming soon, you'll be able to check out our STEM is Family Fun page. So many great activities you and your kids can do together to explore different STEM fields and principles. That's all at readingwithyourkids.com. Join us right now from the beautiful city of San Diego in California. Our guest is here today to celebrate an absolutely beautiful picture book. It's called Teaching Tornero. Please welcome to the show the author and the director of publishing for the San Diego Zoo, GeorgeAnne Irvine. Hey, GeorgeAnne, how are you?
Hi, Jen. I am so wonderful, and I'm just really excited to be on your show and to talk about Tornero the Sloth.
I'm delighted for so many reasons. First, I just want to get this right at the top of the show. The Teaching Tornero is part of a series of 7 different children's books, and they arrived. The box of the books arrived yesterday here at our home. And my beautiful wife, who people who listen to the show know, has taught in the Boston Public Schools for 34 years, retired recently. When she opened up the box, she pulled out the books, and she was amazed. She fell in love with the books immediately, and she fell in love with Tornero, and that's a pretty big deal. My wife has literally seen tens of thousands of children's books in her career, and here at home we have books coming to the house every single day. Not many of them get her attention. This series grabbed her attention for so many different reasons.
Dad, you just touched my heart and have made me very, very happy because these books are very special, and they are nonfiction stories about real animals that live or have lived at the San Diego Zoo and San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And the whole concept behind the collection of books, I thought that if a child could get to know an individual animal like Tornero the Sloth or Karen the orangutan, I thought that it would inspire them to care about that particular animal, but also the species and also about conservation in general. And the stories are all illustrated with photographs, and you don't see a lot of books out there like this because the challenge is you have to follow the animal from the beginning of its story to wherever the story ends, and you have to have photos of everything that happens. So we have one zoo photographer who cannot be there all the time. So I shoot a lot of the photos. I actually plant really nice cameras with our wildlife care staff, and I teach them how to use them. And I've even used cell phone photos and in some instances, stills from videos. But that way, the kids can really get to know an animal. And I have gotten letters from all over the world that the animals, the stories don't just teach people about the animals, but they inspire them. For example, I received a note from a man in Ireland whose 3-year-old son read our book about an orangutan and fell in love with her. And now this little boy calls every single orangutan that he sees a Karen-utan. It's just, Karen's story, I know we're going to talk about Tornero, but Karen's story is about a baby orangutan who had a hole in her heart. And she had surgery, and then she had some complications. But I get letters from parents telling me that Karen's story made their child brave and the child went into surgery not scared. And I've also had parents say, my child had that surgery, and the book was a really good way to explain to them what had just happened to them. And again, it gave them courage. So the stories have, in my mind, gone well beyond what they were originally intended to do.
Yeah. Well, as I shared with you before we started recording, one of the things my beautiful wife noticed is that obviously these books will be a great addition to any classroom library, any family library. They're bright, the photographs are amazing, great story. But she thought that this would also be a great resource for a counselor or a therapist, because they do talk about emotions, and and they talk about friendship. And so I think it's a great, and she agrees, it's a great way just to touch on a lot of different subjects. And as we've talked about here in the podcast, talking about difficult subjects through a character in a book is a whole lot easier than sitting down and saying, okay, well, today, son, we're going to talk about friendship or bullying or whatever. We're going to talk about your emotions. Kids like, no, I don't want to talk about my emotions. But I'll talk about Tornero and Tornero's emotions.
My niece teaches second grade, and she teaches English as a second language. And she has told me that the children come and talk to her, but they talk to her through the animals. And one of our stories is actually about a baby monkey who is raised by his grandmother. How many children in our country have extended families where the grandparents, the grandmas and the grandpas, really either raise the child or have a very large role in raising the children? Our book about a baby tapir, Dawn, raising Dawn, and a tapir, for people who don't know what a tapir is, they're native to South America and Asia, and they're across, their distant relatives were a horse and a rhinoceros, and a baby tapir looks literally, in my mind, like a watermelon on legs. And they're brown, but they've got stripes and spots just like a watermelon. But in Dawn the tapir's case, his mother, he was her first calf, and she didn't know how to raise him. Eventually she had another calf and did raise it. So our wildlife care team had to raise him. We introduced him to Rachel, an elderly tapir. But there are other animals that live in their habitat. So when Dawn was introduced to the llamas and guanacos, they bullied him. And those are the exact words that our team used when I was interviewing them. And how does a llama bully a baby tapir? They spit at him and they kicked at him, kicked at him, and they pinned their ears down and they made alarm calls, which are like chirps. But Dawn didn't pay any attention to their bullying. He didn't care. He already had a best friend, Bristle, a capybara, which is the world's largest rodent. And bullying is not the theme of the entire book, but it's a theme on a couple pages. And I know for children who read that and they think, gosh, those bullies didn't bother Dawn. I'm not going to let the bullies bother me. And when I sign books to children, all of the books, it takes me forever. People always tease me because I refuse to just sign my name. I feel it's really important to put a message in all of the books. And with Dawn books, I love to tell children to always be themselves. That's the best thing they can do is. So I really appreciate your wife recognizing the opportunities to use these books for children in other ways, in addition to teaching them how important the animals on our planet are and how important it is to protect animals, not just in other countries, but in our own backyard as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about Tornero. I have a special place in my heart for sloths. I have seen sloths in sanctuaries, rescued sloths. I've seen them in the wild. They're delightful creatures. I know a whole lot more about them than I ever thought I would know about them. They're really fascinating creatures.
What's really interesting to me is sloths are a very, very popular animal. I mean, you see people love sloths. There's sloths on greeting cards and videos, but a lot of people have never actually met an individual sloth and gotten to know this sloth. So it's really fun to introduce them to Tornero. So here's the story. Tornero's mother, Xena, is a wildlife ambassador for the zoo. And by the way, his father's name is Brad Pitt because his father has long, flowing, blonde hair and is very charming. But anyway, a wildlife ambassador's job is really to be a teacher. And our wildlife care team uses our ambassadors to teach people about, one, why wild animals don't make good pets, but also to show natural behaviors of the animals and also to teach them about where the animal lives, like in the rainforest, and how important it is to protect the rainforest and the animals that live there. So in essence, Tornero's mother is a teacher, and when Tornero was born, we wanted him to grow up to be a teacher as well. So what's really cool in my mind is that Tornero's mother actually raised him. We don't take babies away from their mother. His mother raised him, and sloths are so cute. They cling to their mother's chest, and their mother climbs everywhere with this baby clinging to her long fur. So the story is about Tornero being raised by his mother while our wildlife care team actually taught him to be a wildlife ambassador. And it's a gradual process. You don't just take the baby and say, okay, you're an ambassador now. So the book actually talks about the gradual process on how we were able to let Xena raise her baby, while at the same time our team gradually got him used to the sounds and the smells and just gradually taught him how to be a wildlife ambassador. What's really funny is baby sloths mature really quite quickly. I mean, by the time Tornero was 10 days old, think about this, he was still nursing from his mother, but he was already starting to eat solid foods. So when you think about all the other animals in the animal world, that's very, very unusual. And so when we would do our wildlife presentations, we would bring Tornero out clinging to his mother. And then gradually, he didn't mind letting us carry him out separately from his mother, but we brought her out at the same time. But as Tornero got older, we could tell that his mother actually welcomed the break. It was really nice for Xena to have somebody babysitting Tornero to give her a break. And this was when he was getting older, when it was about the time for Tornero to part from his mother. I spent a lot of time with him, and I was always amused when they would bring Tornero back from one of his adventures, and they would call out to Xena, who would be up asleep in her hammock, and she would slowly come down to get her baby, and he would snuggle into her. And the wildlife care specialist said, George, she really had a nice nap, so she really seemed grateful that we were able to babysit Tornero for a while. So the book goes into great details about those types of things. Something that I thought was really funny in the story is Tornero likes broccoli, but his mother, Xena, really didn't like broccoli. So when she saw him eat broccoli, she ate it too. However, Tornero also loves bananas, but she never learned to eat bananas. And in fact, if a banana even touches Xena's food, she will not eat it. And I am kind of like that with mayonnaise. If mayonnaise touches anything I'm eating, I will not eat it. So I think kids can really relate to things like that in the book. And sloths move very slowly. They are not lazy. They just move slowly. And I've seen them move quickly, but even when they move quickly, it's still as slowly.
One of the things that I learned when I was visiting with sloths is that the folks taking care of them said that they're not lazy. They're just very efficient.
Yes, very efficient.
Yeah. And one of the points that you brought out is the whole idea of wild animals are beautiful, they're interesting, they're fascinating, they're not pets.
Exactly. And there's one thing that in the back of the book, we talk about threats for wild sloths, and we also talk about facts about sloths. And I'll tell you my favorite fact in a minute. But I am so glad to hear that you went to a sloth rescue facility, because one of the dangers for wild sloths are actually harmful tourism activities in their countries of origin. And what I mean by that is, let's just say you have a cruise ship stopping in Costa Rica. You have people, waiting for the passengers holding a baby sloth saying, hey, get your photo taken with a baby sloth. That is very harmful, because chances are that baby sloth was taken by the mother, who was probably killed, and it's not treated very well. So I always encourage people, if you see any animals in any tourism destination in a situation like that, please, please, please do not get involved with that, but visit a sloth rescue facility. Support them. They're doing the best that they can to rescue sloths that have been in trouble, and then they do release them. You mentioned to me that you actually saw some of the sloths that had been reintroduced to the wild. So I really, in the very back of the book, we do emphasize that tourism activities can be harmful. You really need to look into, what is behind it. But like I said, advise go to a sloth sanctuary, because you're really supporting them doing the great work that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost all of the sloths that we saw that had been rescued from humans who had taken them into their home, possibly with the best intentions ever, but sloths are wild animals, and they aren't meant to eat peanut butter sandwiches and all that other kind of stuff that that are going on in our home. So I think that's very, very important. And I love the idea that what you talked about in terms of tourism. And yeah, you have no idea that how that snake that's on that person's that person wants to put around your neck, or the sloth or parrot or whatever came to be with that person.
Yes, absolutely. And, for people who have done that in the past, it's a learning process. So, just know, okay, I did that a few years ago, but just be aware of that now. And that's some of the messaging that we like to put out there. And I actually have this in the book, where we were doing a presentation with Tornero, and our wildlife care specialist heard a child say to his mother, "Mommy, I want a sloth as a pet." But that prompted our wildlife care specialist to discuss why sloths don't make good pets with the entire crowd. Our sloths at the zoo live in wonderful habitats with trees and climbing structures and hammocks to sleep in, and they are not pets. But like I said, they are teachers, and we do call them wildlife ambassadors. And we have other animals that are also wildlife ambassadors. And it goes back to the concept of the book. For children and parents to meet Tornero, the hope is they will fall in love with him, and then really learn to appreciate sloths and understand why we need to save them.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I want to ask, when zoos are very different now than when I was growing up. And zoos here in America, because I've also visited zoos in other countries, zoos here in America are very different than a lot of places you might visit around the world. Zoos had a bad rap for many years, deservedly so in many cases. But they've changed a lot. And so if you could take a minute, just talk, especially those people out there who are thinking, animals shouldn't be in a zoo, animals shouldn't be behind bars and all that kind of, the value that a zoo brings not only to a community, but to the animals and the animal kingdom itself.
I've been working for the San Diego Zoo for 45 years, and so I have seen a lot of changes. But let me speak about our zoo in particular, but also the zoos in the United States. We have an organization called the American Zoo and Aquarium Association, and there are very, very strict guidelines on how you house your animals, what you do with them. And so all zoos that are accredited in the United States, and they're getting better around the world, really take the best care of their animals. But more than that, San Diego Zoo is run by the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, and we are an international conservation organization. So we have hundreds of conservation partners around the world where we are working together to protect animals in their native habitat. And we also do things at our zoo that really benefit animals in the wild. And I'll give you an example. With our elephants at our San Diego Zoo Safari Park, we've been studying the milk of the mother elephant because we support an elephant orphanage in Kenya. And by learning what it's composed of, it really helps them come up with a better formula for the baby elephants that they are raising. But in addition to that, so we've got all of that where we're really helping animals out in the wild. The zoo is an educational facility. So when people see our animals, they understand how magnificent they are and why it's important to save animals in the wild. And animals are disappearing everywhere. There are so many endangered species. And when people visit our zoo and most other zoos, we are a nonprofit organization. So for these books, anybody who buys one of these books, all of the proceeds go back to our conservation work and to supporting the work that we do with animals. All the guests who visit the zoo and safari park and who purchase merchandise, all of that goes back into our organization. And our mission vision is really creating a world where all life thrives. So that's why it's so important that we actually work with partners in the animals' country of origin, because there are many places where people and animals need to coexist. In Indonesia, for example, you've got, in Sumatra, there have been very rare tigers, Sumatran tiger, attacking people's wildlife. So we get it, but we work with the local villagers to build tiger-proof enclosures that house the wildlife at night so the tigers don't get in and kill their wildlife, so the people are able to coexist with the wildlife. So we do things like that with our partners as well. So zoos today have a really important mission, and I honestly travel the world to see animals in their wild habitats. But most people, I just feel very privileged that I've been able to do that, and I save all my money, and that's how I spend my money, is going out to see animals in the wild. But a lot of people have other priorities and they're not able to do that. So to be able to see an animal up close, smell it, hear it. I love nature shows and I watch them, but it's not quite the same as watching our elephant herd at the safari park, interacting with the babies and playing in the mud and trumpeting, and it's very, very different. So zoos serve a multitude of purposes now. And yes, 100 years ago, it was like a postage stamp collection of animals. You had one of everything. And over the years, we have gradually changed, and now we don't have one of anything. We have family groups. We have a herd of southern white rhinos. So zoos have changed very much, and I'm very proud of all of the things that we have done with the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. And I feel it's really important that people, of course, We want them to visit our facilities, but it's really important that they visit the zoos in their own communities. All of the zoos are trying to improve, and even if they might have a bad, not such a great habitat for a particular animal, support the zoo and donate money and help them build a new one. It's through our donors that we have been able to gradually rebuild all of our habitats for all of our animals.
Yeah.
So that's in a nutshell. I could talk about this forever.
I think it's really important, and I've always loved zoos, and I tell you, when my kids were young, one of the best investments we made was becoming members of the Franklin Park Zoo here in Boston, because not only did it give us access to the zoo get in for free throughout the year, we also had reciprocal rights to visit zoos in other cities. So we would go out on tour and we would visit Jacksonville or wherever, and we could get into those zoos for free. And it was like, this is great. It was such a great bargain. And my kids grew up loving animals, and we love animals. And it's a great way, again, to, as you said, help kids learn to fall in love with animals so that they can protect them and their habitat.
Yes, absolutely. And I work at the zoo, so I can go every day, but zoo memberships are wonderful. And we've got more than 400,000 people who are members of San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. But what's really nice, not only do the members support us, but for them, they can go visit for an hour. We have 2 Andean bear cubs that are just precious, and it's summer, it's really busy. So a member could go and see the cubs and, go on home and come back another time. So it's really nice that you're really flexible with when and how you can visit zoos as well. So, when I retired, I'm sure I will have a membership so I can visit as often as I like.
Well, that is a really good point, because if you're a parent of young kids, here's a pro tip. Kids have a limited attention span. And I know it's like you paid all this money to go into a theme park or a zoo, and so we're going to spend 8 hours so we get our money's worth. Your kids are going to be done 3 hours in, and it's going to be miserable. So take advantage. So if you join the San Diego Zoo or the zoo in your local community, and you can go an hour this weekend, 2 hours a month later, whatever, it's a much more enjoyable experience for you, for your kids. It's the best.
Well, and many zoos, including ours, have educational programs for children. So, for example, we have what we used to call it summer school, but now we call it summer camp. And the kids sign up for a week, and we've got, different programs for different grade levels, and parents can drop their children off early, and we watch over them until it starts, and they can pick them up later. But it's a really great thing to educate the kids and teach them even more about animals. But a lot of zoos have sleepovers and all kinds of different programs. And when you're a member, you find out, whatever zoo it is, you find out about all these wonderful programs that are extra special and that give you that much more in your quest to learn and appreciate animals.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, while you're waiting to become a member of whatever zoo it is, be sure to check out GeorgeAnne's books. It's like having a mini zoo in your kid's bedroom. And the first book to start off with is Teaching Tornero. GeorgeAnne, where can people go to find out more about these great books, find out more about the zoo, and find out more about you?
People can go to our San Diego Zoo website. It's sdzwa.org, San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. They can buy our books on Amazon. We also have our own zoo website, shopzoo.com, and they can purchase books wherever books are sold. And if they don't have them in a particular bookstore, the bookstore can order the books as well. So they are available, and I feel very honored to write these books. To me, I'm just the storyteller. The stories are about our wildlife care teams and our veterinary teams and our wildlife. And I just feel very honored to be able to share their stories with children everywhere. It's really an honor for me to be able to do that. And I love that children like these books and learn from them.
We've had a wonderful time speaking to the author of Teaching Tornero, the director of publishing for the San Diego Zoo, GeorgeAnne Irvine. GeorgeAnne, thank you so very much for being with us.
Thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading With Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be MJ Palmer. She'll be here to celebrate her debut children's book. It's called Day Switch. That's the next episode of the podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, GeorgeAnne Irvine. Please be sure to check out Teaching Tornero and all of the wonderful books that come from our friends at the San Diego Zoo. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Madison Dieris, Soji Franklin, Monica Rivera Sosa, Ann O'Leary. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.